We all know that only James Gunn can save the DC cinematic universe, and that it must be done with the introduction of Lobo. Now it's just a matter of deciding which comic book to base the plot on. Now let's count down the top 5 comics to base the upcoming Jason Momoa Lobo movie. Well, Clyde, if you don't know who Lobo is, you've got to get hip to one of the baddest bastages in the DC universe. He is the invulnerable intergalactic bounty hunter who's tangled with the likes of Wonder Woman, Batman, and even Superman. Possessing a healing factor, genius-level intelligence, and nigh invulnerability, you do not want to get on Lobo's bad side. The following comic book plots would result in a new DC movie that will make $1 billion guaranteed. Superhero movies love to start off with an origin, but I gotta say Lobo's very first appearance wasn't that great. It wasn't until his own limited series in 1990 that we truly saw the power and the majesty of the main man. At number 5, the first Lobo limited series from 1990 with art by Simon Bisley is a guaranteed blockbuster. This miniseries would be a great introduction to fans throughout the world. Basically, Lobo is hired to escort a very important asset to stand trial at some intergalactic base or something. Because of his unfailing code of conduct, he takes on the job in his own special way. Along the journey, we have the sons of Lobo wanting to take revenge on an unauthorized biography of the main man. So that'd be a great subplot to the movie, definitely. And the twist of it all is that he's got to escort Miss Tribb, his old teacher, to stand trial. She's also a Zarnian, but he's supposed to be the last Zarnian because he killed a whole planet. That's another subplot that could be in the movie in flashbacks, which are explained perfectly in the book. She's also the one that wrote that unauthorized biography that's really pissing him off. And with such a vulgarian making trouble throughout the galaxy, the Legion of Decency is on Lobo's trail as well, and they are not to be messed with either. So intergalactic shenanigans, plots and subplots, extreme violence, and a clearly defined goal is why it would be the perfect comic book series for the next Lobo movie. The Lobo limited series from 1990. At number 2, my pick is Lobo Infanticide. Now hear me out, this would work best for a sequel after we get the Lobo cinematic universe going on, because this miniseries is all about Lobo's illegitimate offspring coming to assassinate dear old dad for being such a bad and negligent father. And there's a lot of illegitimate Lobo children out there in the galaxy, which would make for a great plot of everyone trying to get him. We'll also see the introduction of Lobo's daughter and some epic fight scenes. The original comic book featured again some writing by Alan Grant, and they should hire Alan Grant to do the Lobo movie anyway, no questions asked. This particular series has amazing Keith Giffen art, rest in peace, and we further get this world fleshed out of intergalactic bounty hunters, grotesque mutants, and violence that will make Peacemaker blush. That guy's not having a good day. I'm telling you, this is the blueprint for an amazing Lobo movie. Yes, it does take a little bit of world building to get up to this point. After all, by 1992, Lobo had been around for 6 years and his whole world had really been fleshed out. But we don't need an origin movie every time we get a superhero movie. Intelligent audiences will be able to get up to speed right away. They'll know that this is a badass bastage that you can't mess with. With today's modern special effects, you can create such sublime carnage on screen and intergalactic set pieces that Jason Momoa can really revel in. And audiences will love Lobo because, yeah, he's a bad guy, but he can do a couple of nice things here and there. And when all his illegitimate children are trying to kill him, hey, we can all relate to that. It'll be the feel-good movie of the summer. Thanks to Lobo Infanticide. At number 3, I'd say pick a story from the regular Lobo series that was published from 1993 to 1999. There were 66 issues published, which included several one-off issues and a few multiple plot issues. There's plenty to pick from to create an amazing Lobo movie. But to make it easy, there was the Lobo Year 1 Annual, number 3 from 1995. Okay, if we need an origin story, this is it. This will get all the Phoebes up to speed on the main man. We'll get to learn all about his bounty hunting prowess. We've got his origin story in this book, just translated to the big screen. And this is what the movie eggheads need to learn. The stories are there in the comics already. You don't need to make any changes. A comic book genius already wrote and drew these stories. We just need your Hollywood big money to put it onto the big screen. There's no need ever to change the comic book stories, because we all know that the comic books are way better than the movies. And so when we want to have the very first Lobo movie turn to Lobo Annual number 3, because this will be a cinematic blockbuster, guaranteed. Moving away from an origin story, I give you the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special. Yes, the classic story of Lobo being hired by the Easter Bunny to assassinate Santa Claus? Get Jason Momoa into the gym stat so he can bulk up for this challenge. We just need to do some fan casting about who Santa Claus would be. Tell me in the comments who should be Santa. Yeah, no joke. This is an amazing classic Lobo story from the 90s. And you know, we all love the 90s. They're big. They'll never die. And if you were there, well, you were living in the good old days. Sorry, kids. The 90s were amazing. Where else would you have a comic book where Lobo, the main man, is hired to assassinate Santa Claus by a drunken Easter Bunny? But when Lobo takes on the job, it will get done. I would love to see this mission prep montage on the big screen, wouldn't you? Now don't tell me Jason Momoa's Happy Trail wouldn't get butts in the seats. Ho, ho, ho. So you've seen it here first. When they finally do the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special on the big screen, it all came from this story. And you heard about it here first on the vmcampos Comic Book Club. Here's the first place where you saw Lobo breaching Santa's defenses. All of those elves trying to stop the main man. But to no avail. This has got to be done in practical effects, of course. No CGI, or else you won't get the full effect. And we need to see Dog in the film as well. Prominently featured, of course. The theater will erupt when we finally see Kris Kringle himself on screen. And that battle will be the most epic one of the ages. No more spoilers. You'll have to wait for this when it's on the big screen as the next DC blockbuster, the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special. Before we get to my number one pick of what should be the plot of the first Lobo movie, let's take a little diversion. May I humbly suggest that the Lobo Convention Special be the very first Lobo movie? Yes, Lobo visits the San Diego Comic-Con and wreaks havoc. It can't fail. Now, this story has a very special place in my heart because I went to my very first San Diego Comic-Con in 1993, and this book was being given away at the door. As soon as you walked into Comic-Con, they're like, hey kids, enjoy a Lobo comic. And I did. This was the most hilarious comic book I had ever read in my life. And the levels of violence here changed my young soul. And when I saw Lobo descending upon the convention center itself, I had to look out the window to see if it was true. Yes, I was a stupid child back then. But I didn't care because Alan Grant and Kev O'Neill, along with Keith Giffen, made a raucous romp that has remained in my memories for 30 years. The puns, the art, the violence, the legally distinct parodies. This was my most cherished comic book for a long time. Right next to my copies of Rick and Morty #1, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, the first appearance of Carnage, the first appearance of the Black Costume, ASM 300, the Flash 123, and Albedo #2. Yes, the Lobo Convention Special #1 is one of the most important comics in my collection and would make for an amazing Lobo movie. But I think the #1 surefire blockbuster hit for the Lobo movie, starring Jason Momoa, directed by James Gunn, would be Lobo, A Contract on God. This would be the perfect movie to introduce Lobo to the DC Extended Universe. This would be the perfect plot to make the Lobo movies a global phenomenon. Yeah, this is an extremely offensive book, but that's what you need to become a blockbuster nowadays. What's the story about? Let's check it out a bit. This would be an amazing way to start off the movie, of course. Born to be Wild blasting in the theaters while Lobo cruises the spaceways. Where is he going? Well, he's on his way to meet with a new contract. Misunderstandings happen and a few of them get killed. But that's just the cost of doing business with Lobo. So the monks of the world of paradise are living under a very oppressive god, and they can't take it anymore. They want to hire Lobo, the main man, to kill their deity. Their extremely unfair, capricious jerk of a deity. That's the big idea here. Lobo versus God. And how the innocent people are turned towards debauchery, as it should be. He takes on the job, of course, because, hey, I've never fragged a deity before. Might be fun. So he's off to the planet of paradise to meet this so-called God. Now, people are going to love this also because here we have religion run amok, with the sin police beating anyone who doesn't toe the line. And anyone who's ever been in a religious institution knows the joy of being forced to sing hymnals and wanting to get it over with quickly. But what if Lobo shows up to your church and just frags everyone? That catharsis alone will guarantee a #1 spot on the opening weekend. Plus this amazing action, twists and turns, and oh no, Jason, watch out for the gas. But you can't keep Lobo, Jason Momoa down. Plus we can have a cool cameo from the Three Stooges. There'll be plenty of comedy, violence, special effects. And they plot that everyone can understand. An intergalactic genius-level psychopath has been hired to assassinate God. This story just sells itself. And that's why Lobo, A Contract on God, must be the plot of the first Lobo movie. And there you go, those were my top 5 Lobo comic books that must become the next Lobo movie. What do you think? Tell me which was your favorite. Have you read any Lobo comics before? Why not? Do you want the main man to come after you for that idiocy? Go now, buy all the Lobo comics you can. And after the first Lobo movie becomes a blockbuster, we'll eventually see Lobo 1 million in theaters coming soon. You heard it here first, bastages.